I'll never forget this. My dad looked at me and he said, more revenue isn't always the key. He goes, you have to be profitable.
Welcome to another episode of the Seven Figure Journey podcast, where we explore the ins and outs of the seven figure journey. My name is David Gilliland with Elite Entrepreneurs. I'm one of your hosts. We are privileged to have Daniel Krekorian with us out of Be.Remembered. Daniel, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, David. I appreciate it.
Did I did I say your business name right?
Yeah, be remembered.
I'm glad to hear that because I'm often not remembering. Uh, with the name. Okay, I couldn't let it slide. So I I love talking with business owners and the problems they solve. Yours is a fun one. Yours is that like let's make it easy for a wedding, for a groom and a bride to plan all of their moments and the capturing the videos and photography and the locations and all the editing and just kind of like making it beautiful. You make it simple for them and all those photographers and videographers out there to match
Yeah.
up, kind of like an Uber for weddings. And
hmm
if I remember right, it was like 1,200 weddings you guys were a part of this last year.
That's correct. Yeah, 1,200. Pretty
That's
insane.
awesome.
Yeah, grown quite quickly.
Well, that's a lot of fun. Um,
Mhm.
what, yeah, as you've kind of gone through this, and this is just for anyone, right? Anyone who wants, or are
Mhm.
you geographically tied?
We're geographically tied at the moment, so we're based out of New England, but we are expanding rapidly here. So we'll be nationwide very soon. If they're Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, New Hampshire, Vermont, Maine, etc., that's where we're really focusing our efforts at this time.
Very cool. Well, when you make
Mhm.
it out west, I promise there's lots of weddings here.
Oh, absolutely.
Hey, that's so fun. I mean, you guys you've experienced some rapid growth, learned a lot of
Mhm.
things along the way. Uh,
Mhm.
what I'm wondering, for our community of seven figure business owners, like, since you
Mhm.
passed the $1 million mark, what
Mhm.
are the lessons that you've learned? What are some of the things that have just really helped you succeed beyond that point?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, um, things have changed so much in the past 4 years, which has been really interesting too, because we've had such a rapid shift in economy from post-COVID, the days of COVID where we really didn't know where the next meal was coming from. They were going to shut us down, etc. And then after that, we have this massive spike, massive bubble in the wedding industry where people are like, I want to be together. I want this, right? And so now we were in a place year two where we just said we have to buy. We have to keep up with the demand. The train was moving at 100 miles an hour. And I think once we passed that, $1 million mark, we, yeah, I'll never forget this. My dad looked at me and he said, more revenue isn't always the key. He goes, you have to be profitable. And one of the things I learned very rapidly, I got into things like photo booth and makeup. And very quickly, we learned that the profit margin, sure, it was showing a better revenue, but it was taking away profit from some of our other pieces because there was a much larger learning curve. The advertising was higher. So, the thing I learned is there's a sweet spot for every business. I also, or every structure. And that 1 to 2 million to 1 to 5, um, when you're trying to go beyond that, it gets real challenging real quick because you have to revolutionize the way your structure works.
Yeah.
Um, that was a tough learning curve because we're also trying to keep up with demand. This is in to do that in really 2 years to get over a million, and then year two we were over a million, and year four we're at 1,200 weddings. There was so much to be learned, and we actually had a lot of people. We thought that we needed more people, and what we actually needed was more efficient business practices. We needed a better structure. So that was one of the biggest pieces too, is like, you have all this money. Okay, yes, let's go invest in people for sure. That's something that I think every business owner wants to do because people are ultimately going to drive your success. But at the same time, make sure they have good systems in place. And I think one of the biggest mistakes I learned that I had to adjust for very rapidly is if you bring in the great people and you don't have a good system to house them, they're useless to you, right?
Yeah.
So you
Let,
have to, yeah,
let's get in just a little tighter because I mean, we all use the term system. It could mean
mhm,
1,000 things. Could you
sure,
share, if you're willing to, a specific system that you're like, this one, I was using a lot of people and I actually just needed a better process and system. So fewer
yeah.
people could do all of the work. Like, can you get a little more specific with us? For instance,
Yeah, well, absolutely. Well, as you can imagine, when you're dealing with 1,200 people, and the funniest bit is you're not just dealing with 1,200, you're actually dealing with next year, the year after that, right? All of these people, the people who are trying to book, you have a lot of people who are in demand of you, access to customer service, to sales, etc. And one of the things we did was we hired people to talk to them essentially. The system we needed to build was, we used a company called Zapier. It was just automation. It was just sending out emails. These people just wanted to hear from us. And we were known for our customer service. And now people are just like, where are you guys? Because my team wasn't equipped with the knowledge or the scheduling to reach out to these couples and say, hey, we're here. I know you don't need us right now. And in our minds, we're like, you don't need us right now. But in their minds, they're like, yes, but I want to know you're available. So all we had to do, we didn't have to hire all of these people. We hired three people. And then we found out once we actually had a tech come in and just automate these emails to send out 1 year out, 6 months out, 3 months out, just saying like, hey, we're here. Do you need anything? And now we took our 1,200 customers and, every once in a while they responded, thank you so much. But what was really happening was we were able to eliminate, instead of having to communicate with 1,200 people, we're actually only communicating with about 100 because those 100 people were the people that actually were in need. And so that went from three jobs to really one. And now we have it down to a self-service center that people actually feel like they're in control of. And so now that job got grouped into sales, right? And being able to just be tackled from that. So that system, you know, again, we were so hot to trot, hot to take care of our customers. It's like we're still taking care of our customers. We're just doing it in a much more efficient way.
I love that. So it was that customer success side. They've already paid. They've already got their stuff, but
Mm.
there's touches, there's follow
Yeah.
up, there's whatever, and um, and instead of so much, let's let people solve all the problems. Let's build a system that can solve the problems that systems can do, and let
Hmm.
people spend their time on the nuances, the differences.
Well, and then there's just simple things like having an FAQ, alerting people when they book of how the process is going to go. That was a big one, and it's funny because when you're in it, you don't see it. You sit there and you say, "Oh, geez, I have to go hire another person, and how am I going to afford them?" And I hope it all equates, and you're doing all this math, and then you almost need that outside look and you go, wait a second, this is a very simple
Yeah,
solution. Like they just want to know what's happening next. And if you do that, you have to listen. I think that was one of my biggest pieces that, we fail to do on occasion, but you have to listen to what they're actually saying. Sometimes a little different, which is when, you really have to dig in like you do on a podcast and say, like, what do you actually mean by that? Do you want me to be at your beckoning 24/7, or do you just want to know what the next step is? And most of the time it was just saying to them, hey, this is when we're going to reach out, this is what we need from you in the meantime, here's how we work, yada yada yada. And they went, sounds great, you guys are the best. I went, oh, that was easy.
perfect. Yeah, I
So
love that.
yeah.
So here were the three nuggets I heard you say. One,
Mhm,
get your strategic focus, hone in
mhm,
on what you're best at. There were some of the things that just weren't what you were great at. You were just trying to be an all encompassing solution and it ended up eating up your margins,
mhm.
which ties into number two. Uh, Not all revenue is created equally. Uh,
Yes.
right. And
Yes.
so let's go after the revenue where we uniquely add value and the market pays us for it, right?
Hmm.
And then number three was uh, find systems that can better serve your customers. Don't just assume it's more people.
Yeah.
Listen to what they really need, give them what they need when they need it. Don't bother them the other time.
Yeah.
And that may not be a person. That may just be the right information at the right time and a clear roadmap.
Correct. Yes. Yes.
Very cool. I think those are just enormous nuggets because when we hit the million mark, most of us
Hmm.
are working down 4 or 5 revenue lines, right? Like we've got all these
Mm.
different places because we've been chasing opportunities and not
Yes.
focusing on where we're best yet. So that was a huge, huge piece in the systems that go with it. Oh,
Hmm.
lovely. Thank you. Uh, I mean, now that you've grown to this place, now you have rightfully earned new, bigger challenges. That's what that means, right? That's what entrepreneurship
Yes.
is. So,
Yes.
what are you dealing with now, and how can we help you?
Yeah. Um, it's really one of the things that's tough is figuring out how to manage people and how to take yourself away from the day to day. I find that that's been the biggest challenge. How do I mold myself now into a CEO? And one of the tough pieces of that is when you're starting, you're playing every position.
Everything. Yep.
And people know that you're playing every position. And one of the harshest criticisms that I have uh, that I take both for myself and I've heard from other people is, as you step out of that day-to-day responsibility and you're trying to build a vision for the company and you're trying to take on this bigger challenge, people are expecting you to be in these day-to-day challenges. And when you step out, they feel like you're I feel like I'm taking less responsibility for the actions of what's
Mm,
happening around. That's a very difficult thing because you were so responsible for it, but you also know, I know that I need to do this to grow. But at
yeah.
the same time, that lack of responsibility, that's what makes you a good entrepreneur in the beginning. Um, and I think, or I should say that desire for responsibility. We're all desiring. I want to change this. I want to make my mark. I want to do this. I'm taking responsibility where others don't, and that's usually what bring starts this whole ride. And now you're like, okay, I got to back off the responsibility. I got to put people in positions, and if they don't do their job, now people are looking at you saying, this is your fault. You should have been responsible for this the whole time. You're being irresponsible. You're not taking responsibility, and you're like, it's not what I'm trying to do at all. I'm trying to give you a future.
Yeah.
I'm trying
Yeah.
to build a future for all of us here, and it's a very harsh reality. And again, managing expectations and letting yourself somewhat off the hook for this, I think is very very difficult. Something I've dealt with. I don't know how to deal with it.
I, I think you are capturing some of the issues well, though, and really some of the cost if we don't fix it right, because every time you jump in to save the day means the business stays the way it always was.
Yeah. I've had to fight that for the past year. That I
Right?
have forced myself not to jump because I've done photography, videography, DJ, coordinate. I've done it all. And I said this year, I'm not jumping in. I can't do it because every time I do, it falls back on me of Dan can just take care of it. And we can't grow. I can't be in Florida because I can't fly down there and take care of a job. So like we have to build a better system where I can step back.
Yeah. And there's also some psychological things in there for us, for them, is that we've sort of been the superhero all this time, right? The
Right.
entrepreneur superhero who saves the day.
Yeah.
And it's kind of been nice, and they've kind of gotten used to it. They're fine just sitting in the building and watching you fight the villains.
Yeah.
Right? and,
Yeah.
then, come back and they'll wander around in the street again,
Mhm.
instead of um, taking ownership. And it could be that they've tried in the past, but Daniel knows a better way, and it's
Right.
kind of shut him down. Like, oh, I mean, I thought I was doing well, but he's showing me another way. I didn't do it right. I'll just wait for him to tell me what to do.
Yeah.
Right. So the shift from entrepreneur to CEO. goes from I have to solve problems to we need to solve problems,
Yeah.
right? Goes from um, the responsibility is all on me to fix everything, to make sales, to I need to build a team that can save the day, that can fix problems, that can make the sales, right? Right?
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
all of that shift because you are letting go of this doer responsibility. And being a doer is so rewarding. It's also
Yeah.
tangible, and the team sees it. Wow, Daniel is really good at all this, and so they've learned to trust that. But really, if we can get you to leading, you could build 10 doers
Right.
that could put 100% of their time into solving just the videographer issues.
Hmm.
That would be a lot better than your 5% of your time you used to be able to put into it,
Right.
right? And
Right.
so the return is enormous. Instead of you doing $200 an hour work, you start doing $2,000 an hour work, or $20,000 an hour work if you're doing
Mm.
the leading of leaders and setting the vision stuff.
Yeah.
And so it's a huge payback, but hard. So here's a few things these may help as you're going down through. Um, there are, you've got the Michael Gerber approach in the E Myth,
Mm.
where you look at your hats and you say, okay, here's the organization of 3 years from now that we need to be.
Mm.
Like, here's my growth. We're going to need these key roles delivering this value to hit
Hmm.
this 3 year mark. Great. I love that. Let's pretend that that 3 years from now is now.
Hmm.
And my hat goes into every one of the roles that I currently fill.
Hmm.
Right. And we just stick those hats on. And you're like, oh, look, I'm the salesperson. I'm the videographer. I'm the IT support on the back office in our office here. I'm the only one who takes the trash out or that makes the Costco order. I'm the only right. You just kind of like go
Right.
through this list. You're like, oh, I fill a lot of roles, too
Mm.
many. And each one of these roles, first I get to look at and say which of these roles are just not needed. I just get rid of.
Mm. Yeah.
Which of these roles don't need to exist in my company? I could outsource because it wasn't strategically imperative. They were have to do's that somebody else could do
Hmm.
for us. And now, which roles do I uniquely add value today in as a doer that need to happen but aren't in the leader? Which of these, and I like to pick on, when I'm first beginning, I like to pick
Hmm.
on the ones I least like doing. Because it's like, which one sap my energy and I just don't
Mm.
love it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But have to be done well. And before I pass them
Mm.
off, I don't want to list out all of its duties. I don't want to
Mm.
know their to do list. I want to know their delivery list. Tell me the
Mm.
2 or 3 things for that role that we measure regularly. And that means this role is worth their pay. If they deliver
Mm.
those 2 or 3 results, maybe even one result, they deliver this, they earn their pay. That's the fair exchange, that paycheck for that delivered role,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
ultimate clarity. You're about to say something. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, two things. One, I think one of the biggest questions that I was just kind of formulating as you're talking to is like for most entrepreneurs, I know this happened for me. When does this transition happen?
Oh,
When do you make that transition? Number one, and then number two, you know, I guess one of the things that I've dealt with too is I've gone through this transition. So I've put these goals in place for them, but how do the economy has been in the tank. How do you judge them based off of that too? How do you incorporate that into your overall analysis of what they're doing?
okay. So let's back off to the first question. When
Hmm.
do you begin this? And the moment you've got paying customers, you start
Mm.
working yourself out of a job. You've already done it several
Yeah.
times.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Never stop that. You need to first get rid of the things you don't like doing that others could do. That's one way of approaching it. You could pick another one. You could instead say, I'm going to move out of the role that's the least value add, but taking the most of my
Mm.
time. And maybe I love it, but I need
Mm.
to let it go.
Yeah.
Okay. Get more time back. I don't move out of any role unless I see something I could add more value in.
Mm.
So, do you have something that you can clearly see its value? And do you focus on that with such a strong, intent that you feel uncomfortable doing the other work because this is so valuable and needs to be done? If we're not ultra clear about what we're moving to and ultra clear about what we are handing off, that's those clear metrics,
Mm.
then we're irresponsibly relegating instead of delegating, right? We're just
Mm.
getting rid of, we are the irresponsible person, just like they said we were. If we're like, well, you just take care of it. Come on, you can figure it out. And I'm moving on. It's like, wait a
Yeah.
second. Be clear. What success look like in the role? Now let's go to the second question. What's the result in this space?
Mm.
You can determine within your market, like, would I have done much better in that role? Or is
Mm.
that what's really there? But if I can't afford to have someone in a role because they can't delight the customers, like
Mhm.
one of my measures is your rating from the customers is up at this level, right? This is how
Mhm.
delighted they are. Or this number of
Mm.
referrals come in general
Mhm.
across these because of the kind of work we delivered. Great. Somebody owns that role. And if I can't expect that from them in the role, um, well, could I expect it from me? If I can expect it from me in that role, I should be able to expect something from them that's measurable. Now, I get that you could say, well, the sales, I'm not so certain, da 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 da. Sometimes it's hot, sometimes it's not. Sure, figure that out. But you will still have here's my revenue number, and you probably have here's the number of appointments we're setting up or whatever it is, right? And
Mhm.
talking to
Mhm.
people. Or
Mhm.
respond to all leads from marketing within
Mm.
X amount of time and showing this kind of conversion percentage. So marketing may have a smaller number coming in because of the market that's out there right now, but you still could have the same sort of percentage of conversion, and you could still respond within a certain amount of time. So right, no one's
Right.
out there hanging. We know the deal closes in the first 2 minutes, and then they start
Mhm.
losing interest and they've moved on to somebody else. So you got to
Yeah.
be on that call, right? You got to be
Yeah.
responding.
Yeah.
Great. So let's measure that and let's put that as our expectation. You can
Mhm.
start with behaviors and then move your way up to results if you need to for a new
Mm.
person in a role.
Mm.
But get that clarity. And then going back to the first question, when do I begin working myself out of one role into the next? Always. And the
Mm.
moment you can see there's a higher value work for you to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
The worst thing would be I'm moving to a CEO role. I have a team of 7 people. I'm calling myself a CEO who's not working in the trenches at all with 7 people.
Mm.
That's just silly,
Yeah.
right? Like, you're too small of a team.
Yeah.
Now, you do own the CEO role, but more than likely, you also own the sales role, or more than likely, you
Mhm.
also own the product, you know, the person who owns the product and how it's being developed. There's some strength you have. You're not
Right.
getting rid of that yet. Let the revenues justify the volume that we have coming through for this allows me to hire someone at that phase so I can fully let
Mhm.
go of it and move to the next role. Terrific.
Mhm.
Right. Then
Yeah.
I think you're ready. So, track demand there, or if you're in a creating demand, then, that's another
Mhm.
game, but that's normally using someone else's money in a venture type of thing. So you can
Yeah.
decide what you do there.
Fair enough. Hmm.
Was that, did that answer your question enough for where you wanted to go?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I know that to me has been one of the most difficult things is, making sure that, or really making sure that I keep focused on my role of trying to build this vision, expand the company, while giving people the ability to do it. Like it's so easy to micromanage because again, you have these people being like, Dan was the hero, come in, save the
Sure.
day, make this done right. And it's like, yeah, I need them to fail to see that this is how to get it done so they can be that hero for you because I've done so many of them. They need to learn this too. They need to learn the ins and outs. It's a very hard discovery part, I think, for everyone involved.
Here's a piece that may help is that for them to learn to think and act like a business owner, like you do, you need
Mm,
to be explicit also, not just about the role and what it needs to deliver, but
mm,
about the business vision and how we make decisions. So we
mm,
need to get out of your mind and heart what your
yeah.
purpose is, along with the team that can help you generate this. You can co create it. But what is our
Mm,
true purpose? That we'll serve that above everything else. Because they're like, well, wait a second. He just gave money back to those people. I don't understand. I thought, you're like, no,
right.
we have this purpose, and here's our values. One of our values is we're going to do the right thing, even if it costs us money, right? Even if
Mm,
we lose profits, to do the right thing at this time with this customer.
yeah.
You're going to have certain values that you make decisions based on.
Right.
Those need to come out of your mind and get into the minds and hearts of your team and any future employees, any future hires or team members. So that's got to be really clear. They need to know that if I fail because
Mm,
I was serving a different purpose or different values, I lose my job.
right.
If I
Mm,
fail serving the purpose, aligned with the values, and Daniel looks at it and he's like, yeah, you went through the same kind of thing I would have done, and that was a failure, but that was a learning failure.
right.
What'd you
Right.
learn?
Yeah. Actually, that's really interesting. That's a really
That's
interesting way to put it.
that's normally key work when you're approaching 10 team members. That's
Yeah.
key work to do right then. A little before you get there, if you get there, you'll be like, oh man, this is painful. I'm sort of the
Mm,
bottleneck for all decisions, right? That's how it'll feel when you get to 10. You can do it a little
yeah.
sooner than that. Then from there, now you're able to start really hiring people that fit the culture of the business or the kind of the soul who Daniel is. So they're just making decisions like a business owner and that fit the
Hmm.
role because they have clarity around what success looks like in the role.
Mm,
Now you've got good people lifting it, carrying it, going fast, and you've got more revenues will be coming in, better profits. You'll be able to continue to move to the next level of work that you need to do to guide the company through the changes. So,
mm.
anyway, hopefully that was helpful.
Yeah.
We could talk about this like literally like this is stuff that you'll work through this kind of stuff for a solid month to get it really really well dialed in,
Yeah.
and then some more after that with the roles, right? So it
Mm,
takes time, but with that sort of intentionality and framework, I think it'll give you a leg up in how to
yeah.
delegate. We'll call it delegate responsibly, right, through the process.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Hmm.
Well, Daniel, thank you so much for joining us. This is going to wrap up this episode, but before we close out, how do people get in touch with you, or how do they use your services?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can always go to BeRememberedWeddings.com. We also have services for corporations under BeRememberedStudios.com. So you can always go on there. Daniel at BeRememberedProductions.com or info at BeRememberedWeddings.com. You can always jump right on there. We have our phone number on the website, everything like that too. So text, call, whatever works best.
Fantastic. Daniel, thank you so much. And again, uh, we love talking about finding those nuggets and especially
Mm,
implementing those insights into our businesses. For all those seven figure business owners listening in right now, if you found value, please like, share, do what's necessary to get it to other seven figure business owners so they too can get over some of the hurdles they're facing and continue to contribute, make an impact that they're having in their communities. Until next time, keep growing, keep striving, keep building, and keep caring.